Hello and welcome to Psychosa. In today's video, we are going to explore the Milgram experiment, the Stanford prison experiment, and other important psychological experiments to answer this question. When and why do ordinary people behave in extraordinary ways? Now, imagine yourself in these experiments and let's embark on a journey into the depths of human psychology. This exploration will make you think about things like obedience to authority, social conformity, the roots of violence, and the fine line between reality and perception. This video will help you question what you think you know about human nature and gain a new perspective on yourself. In 1961, at Yale University, an experiment involving ordinary people revealed a dark side to human nature. This experiment, conducted by Stanley Milgram, sought to show how far people would go in obeying authority figures. Participants were told they were taking part in a study on learning and memory. Their task was to administer electric shocks to a learner who gave incorrect answers. Participants were extremely tense and stressed because they thought they were really shocking the learner. But the truth is, the learner receiving the shock was actually an actor and wasn't being shocked at all, just pretending. The purpose of the experiment was to see how far participants would go in obeying authority. The results were surprising, as a large majority of participants chose to obey authority, even though it conflicted with their own conscience. Approximately 65% of those who participated in this experiment followed the authority figure's instructions and pressed the shock button at the highest voltage. This revealed that ordinary people have the potential to inflict serious harm on another person simply when directed by an authority. Even more striking was that this obedience could override even strong inner resistance, such as personal values, moral objections, and emotional discomfort. Milgram noted that these results were a critical warning about individuals' blind adherence to authority and for understanding the dark side of social order. What about you? How far could you go in a situation where an authority figure is directing you? Could you stop yourself? Now, let's go to 1971. Another experiment at Stanford University showed how easily people can be shaped by their social environment and the roles they take on. A team led by psychologist Philip Zimbardo brought together ordinary college students for 2 weeks in a simulated prison environment to take on the roles of guards and prisoners. The aim of the experiment was to observe how quickly people adapt to their assigned roles and how these roles can affect their behavior. Initially, both guards and prisoners had difficulty adjusting to their roles. This showed that human nature has empathy and understanding. However, over time, the dynamics of the experiment changed dramatically. The guards began to use their authority more and more, displaying a harsh and oppressive attitude towards the prisoners. This clearly revealed the transformative and dark effect of power on human psychology. The prisoners, on the other hand, became helpless and obedient. Some experienced emotional breakdowns. The experiment was abruptly terminated 2 weeks earlier than planned because the participants were completely immersed in their roles and spiraling into uncontrollable chaos. This starkly illustrated how forcing the dark side of human nature can lead to dangerous consequences. It also revealed that our social environment and the roles we take on profoundly affect who we are and how we behave. So, if you were a guard in this experiment, could you manage to act with empathy and understanding, or would you succumb to the dark allure of power? The year is 1950. A series of experiments conducted by Solomon Asch showed how easily people would change their minds under peer pressure. In these experiments, participants were given a simple visual perception test. Their task was to determine which of the two lines was longer. However, the participants were actually with other participants who were part of the experiment. And these people had pre-agreed and were deliberately giving wrong answers. The results were surprising. Approximately 75% of the participants conformed to the group's wrong answer on at least one trial. Some participants even supported the group's clearly wrong answer for most of the experiment. The Asch conformity experiment showed that people's desire to conform socially can override even their tendencies to think logically and tell the truth. So, if you were in this experiment, could you stand up for what's right, even if it means going against the majority? Or would you get lost in the crowd and conform to something you know is wrong? Let's go to the 1960s. The Bobo doll experiment, conducted by Albert Bandura, revealed how children learn through observation, and particularly how they imitate violent behavior. In this experiment, children watched an adult exhibit aggressive behavior towards a toy called Bobo. Banzame fought his phone. The adult punched, kicked, and hit this toy with a toy hammer right in front of the children. The children were then taken to a room filled with the same toys. The results were striking, and the children who watched the adult's aggressive behavior tended to imitate the same behaviors, and they too punched, kicked, and hit the doll with a hammer. The scariest part is, the children also imitated the aggressive words and gestures the adult used. The Bobo doll experiment showed that violence can be a learned behavior, and that children in particular tend to imitate the behaviors they observe. This experiment raised serious concerns about the potential impact of the prevalence of violence in the media on children's behavior. So, do you think violence is innate or a learned behavior? This experiment shows how much children are affected by their environment and how the behavior of adults resonates in their world. What happens when a group of perfectly healthy people pretend to be sick to be admitted to mental hospitals? The answer to this question lies in a striking experiment conducted by David Rosenhan in the early 1970s. In this experiment, 8 people applied to different mental hospitals, pretending to be patients. Their only complaint was a voice echoing in their heads. Yes, they weren't really sick, but they were all diagnosed with schizophrenia or other serious disorders. After entering, all they did was act completely normal, but the doctors continued to see them as sick. For example, even normal behaviors like journaling were considered symptoms of illness. The volunteers were discharged after an average of 19 days. This experiment shockingly revealed how easily psychiatric diagnoses can be manipulated and how social prejudice labels people. The label of mental illness is a stigma that is difficult to get rid of. This experiment reminds us that we need to develop more empathy and understanding towards individuals with mental illness. So, do you think our social perception is fair enough? Does the Rosenhan experiment show that there are still prejudices we need to overcome? All these experiments prove to us that human nature can act in difficult and unexpected ways. On this journey to understand ourselves and others, these experiments guide us in exploring human nature, illuminating the dark spots and pushing us into deep thought. To what extent do you think these factors influence individuals' decision-making processes and behaviors in today's society? Humans are still a puzzle waiting to be solved. To solve this puzzle, we need to look at ourselves and the world with a critical eye and empathy. Join us to solve this mystery together. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like our video. Thank you very much for your support. See you in the next video. Goodbye.